Shabier Kirchner, you're the cinematographer for the Small Axe anthology series. It consists of 5 movies exploring the West Indian community in the UK. So first off, what did you think about the challenge of shooting all 5 of these films? When the opportunity presented itself, was this like a really big kind of undertaking?
Yeah, man. If I'm honest with you, I was terrified when I first signed on to it. I think making one film, is already like an incredibly difficult feat. One good, but making 5 of them was something in half a year as well. Was something that was incredibly sort of terrifying to me, especially like knowing the subject matter was going to be about like my people, you know what I mean? So I was like, whoa, I'm here, I'm holding the flag now. And so the pressure of not messing that up was just like really, really, really strong. But at the end of the day, Steve was just so great at sort of empowering you into sort of and just believing that the truth will be told in our approach to doing it. And so the approach was, it wasn't like when you zoom out and you look back and you look out and you're like, wow, this is 5 different films. How the hell are we going to do this all at once? It was a lot easier for us to sort of zoom in on the one and be like, actually, we're going to do Mangrove. This is how we're going to do it. We shoot Mangrove, we wrap Mangrove. Lovers Rock, we're going to shoot Lovers. This is how we're going to do it. And so it was very much like one by one. It made it a lot more digestible. It also just made it a lot more focused on the individual narrative that we were telling.
And each film, like there's the theme, the continuous theme of the West Indian experience. But the different films have very different scopes and different subject matter. You've got the legal thriller in Mangrove. You've got very intimate Lovers Rock. What were the sort of visual considerations in making all of these films kind of stand on their own as visual pieces, while also kind of making them, kind of consistent, coherent with each other across the 5 films?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't go into it trying to sort of like homogenize the sort of visual look of each film. It wasn't like we were trying to, cram like every film into a peg, or we weren't going into it thinking that everyone has to be like a different format or anything like that. It was very much like each story, we approached it like films, like you would any film, and each story had it's all about the language, right? The language of the camera, the language the script needs, and so it was discovering what that language was and what the identity of that language could be, because of the script, because of the real stories. And so we would, we would approach something like Mangrove, and we'd take these are real events, these are real people that have gone through real things, and it was very much not about genre or references of other films. It was references about real life. And our production design team had an amazing, collage of photographs from that era, the 60s and 70s, and that really sort of informed us on a design level how we wanted it to feel texturally, the colors you wanted to use. And it was very evident right away that we wanted it to be a 35 millimeter sort of patina to really capture the all of the sort of detail and of the design and details of the skin and the faces of that era. And then we sort of started talking a little bit more about, okay, like, what this story is like about. Small Axe is about community, but the story is literally about, 9 West Indians sharing one frame in order to bring down an institution. And so we chose the 239 frame line aspect ratio to be able to frame a sense of community versus institution. And so it was very much like, so that was very much a jump off point to our conversations in terms of, format, aspect ratio, and then and so on and so forth. Love's Rock was the exact opposite of that. Love's Rock was, we knew we wanted it to feel more contemporary. We wanted it to feel cleaner, more vibrant. And we knew it was going to be a lot of long takes. We knew what point A and point B was, but we didn't exactly know how we were going to get there. So we just wanted to be able to roll for sometimes 45 minutes at a time, hot swapping cards or whatnot, and felt that the digital was the medium that was going to get us there, and the Alexa Mini was the format, the camera that was going to bring us there, most appropriately. And so on and so forth with all the other, I don't know if I should keep going through all of them, but that was kind of, you get the gist of like how we were, approaching it.
And Love is Rock.
Sorry, knowing that the thing that was similar throughout all of them was the thread of the Black West Indian cult, like, the shoulders that the England was built on. This was the thread. And so that was the sort of sorry.
And Love is Rock in particular, it has such an intimate feel because it's all set, almost all of it is set in this one party. How do you like navigate that kind of physical space with so many people in it, and also looking back on that as the film opened into this world where so many of us are now kind of have been lacking this kind of communal experience, to kind of look back on this as kind of a celebration of that common humanity? Like, what was that experience like?
Yeah, I mean, it was like Mangrove. I could give you technical breakdowns, like, red, white, and blue. I could break down things. But Lovers Rock is very much the unconscious filmmaking. It was like, I don't really know what happened. We shot it in like 7 days. We knew that, there were X amount of songs that were going to be played. And most of it was going to happen in one room. And the rest of it was like, Steve just setting this incredible atmosphere for, here you have all Black cast, Black director, Black DP, you know what I mean? Like it was the first time that I had ever felt that the camera, was accepted by the room as this living, breathing human being. It wasn't a camera, you know what I mean? And I think we were able to achieve all of that because of that atmosphere in the room and moving through the room. And sometimes it was, I didn't even notice that I never really bumped anybody. Nobody ever looked at the camera. Like it wasn't any, like there was no, it was like this thing where we were operating in the pocket, you know what I mean? And it was just really, really, really beautiful. And we would do things like we would, for instance, like silly games. Like we would shoot that whole scene, and we would find sort of like a compositionally, and the light would be sort of changing in real time as we were moving through the room, depending on sort of what Steve was in my left ear, I was in the sort of technical team's right ear in the next room, and they were on DMX boards, and we were shifting the light, and it was dimming, and it was bright, and it was like this. So the whole thing needed to feel like an organism, and the camera needed to feel like every type of person, drunk, sober, man, woman, in between. Like, it needed to feel like static. It needed to feel, timid, and it needed to feel in love, and it needed to feel angry. And so these were things that were really sort of revealing themselves to us as we were rolling and as we were shooting. And, as Steve pulled up the song, like 1, 2, 3 times at the end, like that acapella was never planned. Like the song, at that point, the song had just cut out, and nobody, like Steve didn't say cut. And the people just started singing, and we just sort of went with that, you know what I mean? And I think that instance is very much encapsulates a lot of how we went about making this film, but also, making the series as well, like the trust in each other, and it's, Steve always says, like, best idea wins, it's not about mine or yours, it's about the best, the right. And it was just, obviously had no idea that, what was going to come in the following year was going to come. Very unfortunate. And sitting at home watching it was, it's just really surreal, man. Like all I want to do is like be in that room. And so it's just very surreal, I'm very sort of grateful that, a lot of 2020 and 2021 sort of landmarked by that experience for me personally. So, very emotional.
And another really memorable episode is Red, White, and Blue. While Mangrove and Lovers Rock are very much ensemble pieces, Red, White, and Blue focuses so much around John Boyega and that performance and his face and what's happening through his character internally. What's it like capturing that performance and what his character is experiencing?
John is a force to be reckoned with as an actor, and he was given the sort of the role. Yeah, he was just given a role that he just completely beasted. And going into that, we were like, okay, obviously there's a sort of classic approach to this film that we wanted to sort of translate, but it was also a lot about what in a Cassavetes sense of the word, the face is the greatest location, and John's face truly, and his performance and his nuance, the pain and the sort of friction that was going on inside of him was all, happening on his face. And so that was the sort of driving force of the whole film. It was like, this is the close-up, the medium, and the wide right here. You know what I mean? And in the background was, everything else. But this was where it was happening. And John is just, man's gonna. I hope that man goes really far, because I think he's an incredible talent.
Yeah. And the anthology series as a whole, brought about this discussion about what is a film, what is television, these blurring of lines. The film was awarded Best Picture by the Los Angeles Film Critics. You have received accolades from film critics groups. It's going into the Emmys, which is television. I feel like these lines creatively are blurring in good ways. Like the delineations don't exist really in the ways that they used to. What do you think about that, as a visual artist, seeing these different media kind of blurring the edges of what constitutes those?
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, it's on the screen. You can watch it on a laptop, on a phone, or on a big cinema screen or a projected screen. And I don't really sort of business about, film or TV. For me, these are films, they're stories, and how you want to watch them as, the sum of all of its parts or an individual. I think that there's value to both of them. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, I'm just I'm excited that it happened in a year where everything was being viewed from some at home. And I'm just grateful in a year that this show was direct deposited to living rooms around the UK. People that weren't ready for this kind of conversation to be started. And it wouldn't have been able to happen if it wasn't on TV, And at the same time, I think there's merit in it being seen individually on a big screen, anywhere. But I think it's both. I think it's all and then some, So it's interesting, and I hope more and more things go in that direction. Obviously, I just think the more people that can see it, for me, this particular show, the better. And if that is TV, if that's on the screen, great. If it's in a cinema, then great. But for me, it's just the most people that can experience this, the better.
So it doesn't sound like it really affects what screen people are viewing it on. Doesn't affect the way you approach it. You sort of go into it, what each film needs, regardless of the medium it's going to be seen on.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, I like to think creating it shoot for the big screen, but never am I expecting one or the other. I think, again, I don't let that affect the creative decisions. It's the story that's the most important thing, and the language of the film, not how the film is going to be sort of presented. That's irrelevant to me in that time for these particular stories.
And what drew you to cinematography as a medium in the first place? What inspired you in this direction?
I'm completely illiterate and dyslexic, and had a really rough time in school. with words and articulating sort of myself and feelings. Even in this thing, you know, it's like articulating the thing is always a little bit more difficult. But you know, I think I think as a human being, like I recognize the sort of value in my senses and my just like my emotional intellect, my sensory, and I sort of discovered the camera through my dad at a young age as a way that best sort of was a way for me to express that, you know. And I usually wasn't able to sort of articulate to anybody else like what it meant that I was creating on the screen, but it made sense to me, you know what I mean? And so I think that was like a big drawing force for me, you know, being able to recognize that at a young age, and then also having the support of my family, you know, and then having the support of like, you know, I stand on the shoulders of all those who have done it before me, you know what I mean, and those who have given me opportunity to be where I am. Like I couldn't, So I owe a lot of that to a lot of people, and to the West Indies, of course, because I feel like that's just somewhere that, every piece of work I do, whether it's directly related or not, I'm finding a way in, you know what I mean, on like a spiritual level, you know, on a level that is ancestral and not cinematic.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your work on all 5 of these films, which are available to watch on Amazon. And congratulations on all your accolades that you received for it, accolades to come potentially. And thank you so much for talking to me about it.
Yeah, thank you very much for taking your time to speak to me.